We're on page 60. Siman Daled Yud Bet in Halacha Bra. Mei hanatila, the water you can use for washing your hands. Ukli hanatila, and which kind of kli, which kind of cup or vessel you could use to wash your hands with. 60.
Yeah. Where's your down?
In Yud Bet.
Oh.
Does it say Yud Bet? Yeah.
This is Tov Hakfid.
I'm reading from the bold on top.
Oh. Yeah.
So Tov Hakfid, it's good to be strict or to be cautious or to be careful. Betilat Yadayim Shacharit, regarding the washing of your hands in the morning. Al kol hadvarim shetzachim lakpid b'hem, and all the things that you must be careful about in Tilat Yadayim L'Seudah, when you wash your hands for a meal. Usually, all the things, the halachot that you have to do when you wash your hands for the meal, you should be careful to do them also here. I mean, there seem to be some things that poskim say you only need by washing your hands for the meal. But the general halakha says, also in the morning, let's do those things.
For the meal, you mean on motzi?
Yes.
But the washing for motzi is different than the other.
Right, but regarding the same halachot, if Kugon, for example, she told he should wash mitoch kli, from a cup sheino nakuv, which doesn't have holes inside of it.
No sieves.
Right, no holes, no cracks. V'yeh b'mayim shiur revi'it, and there should be a revi'it of water inside of the cup. A revi'it today is somewhere around 3.5 ounces.
That's not a lot.
No, you need a revi'it on each hand.
That's not very much.
It's not very much at all. If you see the monstrous amount of water that we wash our hands with today,
Well, no one ever had
that much
luxury
water to spend.
Yeah, especially in a desert region.
This has practical ramifications in halakha regarding making the bracha first, later. People would like to say, I'll give you an example. The whole logic of someone who says you can make the bracha after you wash your hands is based on the Rama. The Rama, who bases himself on the halakha, which says you are not allowed to eat bread until you dry your hands.
Oh, dry.
Why? Because the water on your hands are still tameh.
Yeah, right.
And so long as that tameh water is still on your hands, you cannot eat bread. Okay, that's where the Ramah gets his idea that you can make the blessing after you wash your hands. Listen carefully. 2 halachot later, Maran writes, all of what is said above only applies in a situation where one washes their hands with less than a revi'it of water. Because that means that you've washed your hands, but the tameh water is still on your hands. But if you wash your hands with more than a revi'it of water, you have also washed away the tameh water from your hands, the impure water from your hands, and you no longer need to dry your hands before you eat bread. The Rama doesn't argue, agrees with Maran. So even according to the Rama would say that today when people wash their hands more than with this amount of water, and they do it once and twice and 3 times, the Rama would say that you cannot make a bracha after you wash your hands. Meaning he who everyone relies on, even he doesn't agree. Even he doesn't agree.
Now, is a revi'it enough to wash the whole hand or just the fingers?
It's an interesting question. Why less than a revi'it? Practically, that's what people had. And where do you have to wash? Pretty much this part down.
Right.
Yeah? Not like...
One reason I ask is because, of course, on Kippur and Tisha B'Av, you can only wash up to the fingers. It says only. But are your hands considered to be clean?
Yes. Because that's the bare minimum. Meaning we're saying bare minimum, not more than that. But what did I just say about the bracha? According to the Rama, he only says you can make a bracha afterwards when you wash with less than a revi'it, but not when you wash with more than a revi'it. So here's the problem. There are people who study halachot from the Shulchan Aruch, and they refuse to translate those halachot into the situations which we have today. For example, many people will decide to do halachot based on the Shulchan Aruch, but not understanding the assumption of the Shulchan Aruch is that you're washing with less than a revi'it of water. But the moment you wash with more than a revi'it of water, The halakha has changed, but you haven't changed because they refuse to change their thinking. And this is going to be a problem. The problem with people who learn halakha but don't understand the art of halakha. We mentioned that phrase a lot, the art of halakha.
Right.
This is a classic case, a classic example. Everyone who says you can rely on the Ramah, who says you can wash your hands and make a bracha afterwards, they're only speaking in a situation where the Ramah was speaking about. Less than a revit of water. But who do you know washes less than a revit of water?
So revit is
We don't get rain this winter, we'll all be washing.
Revit is a part of a Kiddush cup. Revit is, it depends how big. Some people today, they make Kiddush on like washing cups, They have these huge cups.
I went to a museum up in Central California this summer, and they closed all the bathrooms. They just had chemical toilets outside for people in the museum because there's not enough water to flush and wash.
Huh. Interesting.
Please God, we should get some rain this year.
Amen.
Up in the Central Valley, yeah.
Alright, let's see a continuation here. V'yu amayim nekim. The water should be clean.
And I guess they'll define clean.
Right now. Shelo nishtane marehem. That their appearance has not been changed. They're not cloudy. They're not dirty. They're not filled with food coloring. Whatever it would be.
So if you took like river water and it's kind of muddy because it's a springtime.
It's interesting. We're going to go into these specifically halachot. It could be that you should wait. It could be that you should wait till it settles and then wash your hands with it.
Okay.
It's supposed to be at least drinkable for a dog.
Right. V'shelo na'asta behem melacha, and they should not have done any kind of work with this water. Meaning, it can't be water that's clean they wash dishes with. That's no longer clean. It can't be water that somebody used to wipe down the counters with. It can't be water that someone used to mop the floor with. It can't be water that's used in a machine to cool it down. All these waters are not good for Netilat Yadayim.
Makes me think of the whole mikveh thing.
Go
there, huh?
No, it makes me laugh when you say that a dog can drink, because dogs are notorious to drink out of the toilet bowl.
V'yishpoch hamayim al yadav. You should pour the water on your hands mi kocho, from your own strength. Meaning you should be the one pouring the water, not that they should just be pouring on their own. V'chule, etc. Top of 61. U'ifrat, especially Shladat HaZohar HaKadosh, according to the Zohar, the Kama Miraboteinu HaRishonim, and some of the Rishonim, Dvarim Elu, all of these things, Me'akvim, they actually hold us back, B'ntilat Yadayim Shacharit, from fulfilling the mitzvah of washing our hands in the morning. You have two kinds of halachot. Halachot which are not Me'akvim, or in more Yeshiva Hebrew, not Ma'akev, and things which are Ma'akev. Ma'akev literally means to hold you back. When something is holding you back from doing something, is this detail, what if I do this mitzvah without this detail? For example, what if I put on a tefillin without a bracha? Is the bracha me'akev? Does the bracha hold me back from getting the mitzvah of tefillin? No, you do not need a bracha for tefillin. But why do you make a bracha for tefillin? It's a good thing to make a bracha for tefillin. So it's a good thing to do it, but it doesn't hold me back from doing it. So these things are good to do, but they don't hold you back from doing Tilat Yadayim. Though according to the Zohar and some of the Rishonim, these specifics actually are Ma'akvim. They do hold us back from fulfilling the mitzvah properly. Meaning, according to the Zohar, if one were to wash his hands with water that was not in any of these criteria, he actually would not have all washed his hands according to the Zohar. So you have to know there are certain things that are, is it ma'akev, lo ma'akev. Do they hold me back or do they not hold me back? When you hear details. So what's going to happen if I don't do it? Umikol makom, in any case, what if you can't be particular about one of these details? Practically you don't have enough water. Right? Clear, you don't have a cup. You don't have water that have not been used for any use. Or anything similar. Says of the video, if he told Yadav b'mayim elu, you should wash your hands with this water that you have anyways. ורשאי להתפלל שחרית, לאחר מכן you're allowed to pray שחרית afterwards. על סמך נטילה זו, based on this נטילה. ויסמוך על דעת מרן השולחן ערוך, and you should rely on מרן השולחן ערוך, ורבים and many of מרבותינו הראשונים והאחרונים, many of the ראשונים, the early rabbis, and האחרונים, the later rabbis, שכתבו, they write, שמועילה נטילה כזאת בנטילת ידיים, that this kind of נטילת ידיים works בשחרית, in the morning. This kind of נטילת ידיים works for the washing of your hands in the morning. Let me ask you an interesting question. So some of the rabbis say you do make this bracha. Some rabbis say you can wash your hands with this. Some rabbis say you can't wash your hands with this water. So practically we say, well, do we wash our hands with the water?
If it's the only choice we have.
Yeah, okay. So yes, we use it and we pray shachrit afterwards. The question is though, do we make a bracha in this water? Somebody?
Good question.
Why would you make a bracha?
Well, if it's the washing before using the bathroom, it's one thing. But if it's the washing before tefillah, it's because it's for the sake of that you wash your hands. You're doing a mitzvah for the sake of a mitzvah.
Why would you make the bracha though?
Because you're going to be doing something that requires you to wash.
Why would that warrant a bracha?
Tefillah, because you have to be tummy.
No. Why would I say netilat yadayim on this netilah? Very simply because
It's the first of the day.
Because it works. It counts as something according to Maran. I mean, some rabbis say this netilah doesn't count for anything. Some say it does. Who says it does?
You said Maran.
Maran. And many other poskim. Some say it doesn't. Who are in those camp?
Is it Rabbi Yosef? There's someone I don't remember the name of.
Maybe I didn't explain properly.
Oh, the Omrim and the Tomrim.
We have the Zohar. And some of the Rishonim,
right, I'll pick up.
they say that water that is not kosher for bread is not kosher for the morning. Maran says no, water that is kosher for not kosher for bread is kosher for washing your hand in the morning. This is the first halakha we learned on page 53. Maran says, "Mayim hapsulim netilat yadayim." Water which is not kosher for netilat yadayim, the suda for a meal. Turn the page. Ksherim netilat yadayim tefillah are kosher for washing your hands for the tefillah. Miubat yesh mishomer. There's someone who says, "Delo mevarech alai." You should not make a blessing on this water. Let me just grab my Mishnah here. So what is Maran saying? Maran is saying that water that is not kosher for netilat yadayim for a meal is kosher for washing in the morning. But there's someone who says, what does someone say?
That it has to be kosher for making bread.
Well, what did Maran himself say at the time? Mihu, but what does he say? Page 54. Yesh mishomer, there is an opinion that says, Dilo mevarech alayhu, you don't make a blessing on this, even though it's kosher. What do you think? What's Maran's opinion here? Like the Zohar or like the other rabbis? Is this water kosher for a meal? Is it water kosher for a meal? No. Is it kosher for the morning?
Yes.
Yes. Should we make a bracha on it?
No.
What did Maran say? Answer that last question again. Does Maran say not to make a bracha?
He said don't make
No,
a
it
bracha.
doesn't.
I don't think he mentioned it. It's on page 6.
You can wash your hands, but no bracha for it.
Yesh Mishomer, is that Maran? There's one who says.
I'm going to stay quiet because I think I missed that evening.
It's okay. I mean, you don't know this. I don't know this either. Maran, according to the commentaries here, is quoting somebody else. Yesh Mishomer, that's the Rabbi Aaron Halevi. He's quoting him, saying you can wash with it, but don't make a blessing on it. Here's where I'm stuck. See if Maran says to make a blessing, we make a blessing. Even if someone argues them. Not like the Sfaradim. The Sfaradim make a mistake. Listen carefully. Rare occasions. The Sfaradim make a mistake. The Sfaradim have a rule called Sabal. Sabal means Safek, Berachot, Lehakel. When you're in doubt as to whether you make a blessing or not, don't make the blessing. Meaning if the Rambam says to make the blessing, I don't know, the Torah says not to make the blessing, let's not make the blessing. What if Maran says, yes, you make the blessing? Do we make the blessing? Yes. Do we follow Maran?
Yes.
Always, right? So come the Sfaradim and say, not always. Why? Because we're not so sure if we should follow Maran. What do you mean you're not so sure? Your whole life you go around parading Maran, 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 Maran. Comes now, we're not so sure we follow Maran? So yeah, here you're talking about a situation, God's name in vain, it's not so simple, da 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 da. Here's where the Sfaradim get cold feet. And Sfaradim have invented a rule all across the charts, where if there are two opinions that argue with Maran, let me rephrase. If there are 1,000 opinions that argue with Maran, and Maran is one opinion, you still follow Maran. But if two people argue with Maran when he says to make a blessing, and two people say don't make the blessing, the Sfaradim say Sabal. Safek brachot lakel. We're not sure, so we don't make the blessing. Tell me, how disappointing is that?
So the opinion
It's
two
interesting
outweighs
mathematics, that's for sure.
the opinion two outweigh the opinion of thousands.
Well, of Maran, refer to the Sfaradim.
Doesn't matter which two.
No, not really.
I would follow Maran.
I would follow Maran too. Says Rav Peretz, I would like to see them put me in Gehenom for following Maran. Rav Peretz is a line that he says always. I want to see them put me in Gehenom for following Maran. So here's what you have. You have the Sfaradim, like Rabbi Vadi Yosef, whose yortzeit is today or last night or whatever it was, who convince the whole world they always follow Maran. But they don't tell you except for when it comes to blessings. And someone argues with him, we're not so tough on keeping to Maran. Rabbi Peretz says, no, I follow Maran everywhere. Follow Maran everywhere. Maran says to make a blessing, I make the blessing. So here's the question. If Maran hears of the opinion to make the blessing, do we make the blessing? What if this Yesh Mishomer, this other person, is not Maran? Maran's just quoting him out of courtesy. So the Ashkenazim would say, I don't know, whatever the Mishnah Berurah says or the Ramah says. Fine, let's put them on the side. The Sfaradim would say, listen, Sabal, someone argues with Maran, what can we do? We don't make the bracha. Why? It's better to be quiet in a place of doubt. Fine, you lost the Sfaradim. What if Maran, though, according to us, who we follow Maran on everything, we have to now figure out, does Maran hold you make the blessing or don't make the blessing? He holds it works for washing your hands, but do you make a blessing? See, on one hand I would say that Maran doesn't agree with this opinion, or else he would have written it as his own opinion. Yesh Mishomer, he's referring to someone else. I say to make the blessing, he says not to make the blessing.
But he doesn't say that I say to make the blessing.
Right, but by him quoting someone who says not to make the blessing, not as his own opinion, by him quoting it as someone else's opinion, he's showing you.
Not for sure.
Not for sure. But could you say? Can you say what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's room to say what I'm saying. On the other hand, there's a problem. The problem is that we have a rule in Shulchan Aruch. Whenever Maran brings down the words Yesh Misha Omer, there is someone who says. It says the code for Maran saying this is my opinion. Only when there's no one who argues with it. I mean, if Maran brings down one opinion and then he says Yesh Misha Omer, there's somebody who says his opinion is the other opinion, not the Yesh Misha Omer. But if he brings down the Yesh Misha Omer, there's someone who says and doesn't bring anyone who argues with him, then Maran means to follow the one who says Yesh Misha Omer.
Like you.
Oh, here's my question. Do you understand that rule, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. When Maran brings down a situation of Yesh Misha Omer, there's one who says. If he brings down a situation and he doesn't bring that anyone else argues with that opinion, that's Maran's opinion.
Oh.
But if Maran brings down Yesh Misha Omer and then another opinion, his opinion's like that other opinion, not like the Yesh Misha Omer.
What's the acrostic of Maronic? I'm sorry for asking.
Maran means our master. But also, Matayim Rabbanim Nismach, he received smicha from 200 rabbis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Maran is going to be very tricky over here. Because Maran brings down the Yesh Misha Omer. Does he bring down an opinion that argues with the Yesh Misha Omer? Moshe Chaim says no.
And Maran here is Rabbi Ovadia or the
Rabbi Yosef Karo. I never call anybody else Maran except for Rabbi
Just
Yosef
Yosef
Karo.
Karo. Okay.
No other Marans in the world.
Way back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no continuation.
So according to Moshe Chaim, he says Maran doesn't bring an arguing opinion. So Maran's opinion is you don't make an Al Netilat Yadayim. But if you go with my logic, like what I said before, that Maran says this water is kosher for washing your hands, and then he says, and there is someone who says that you don't make a blessing on it. It could be that in that vague language of Maran, he's leaving room to say, but I would say that you do make a blessing on it. That's what Maran is trying to say. And according to that, the Sfaradim still wouldn't make a bracha, because it's a question of doubt. But according to me, if I could prove that Maran is of the opinion to make a blessing, then I would have to make that blessing.
So can you?
You make the blessing.
Why did he make it so vague?
So can you make a proof?
Can I make a proof?
So we say the blessing or no?
Hmm?
Do we say the blessing?
I think we're not there yet. We're close.
Can I ask, Moshe Chaim, on my desk, I have a big black Shulchan Aruch. It should say Orach Chaim Aleph. Okay, like green and silver letters. Remember, Shabbat sent someone to a black book?
Yeah, I think it was the guy with the white shirt and the black cape.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Now I'm in trouble. and you got lost.
Want me to unearth it?
Yeah, maybe.
Volume.
It's a big Shulchan Aruch, volume Aleph.
Aleph.
Or a Chaim Aleph. It's on my desk. It's not on the bookshelf. It might be underneath some stuff.
Piles of books.
Getting a book.
Oh,
That's how you can get your exercise.
there, a bigger
Up
one.
and down.
This is a real Shulchan Aruch.
Woo, look at small print. Oh man.
It's more complex than a computer code.
Say that again.
It's the code of the world.
That's what Maran says in the Bet Yosef. Okay. Seems like Maran himself holds not to make the bracha.
If-
All right.
If the water's not clean,
In a case where Maran says the water is not clean enough for a meal, but clean enough for the morning, Maran holds you still use the water, but he brings down the opinion of the Ra'ah. Rabbi, what did I tell you his name was? Avraham Halevi.
Mhm.
Yeah? Who's Rabbi Aaron Halevi, who says that you don't make the bracha, and therefore, weren't sure if that was Maran's own opinion or he would just bring another opinion. It seems from what I see in the Bet Yosef at a preliminary look, and the way the poskim speak about it, that they're of the opinion that he says you don't make the bracha also. But when he says you don't make the bracha of Tilat Yadayim, some say that you do make the bracha of Al Nikiyut Yadayim, on the cleansing of my hands, not the washing of my hands. Some say that's what Maran means by the fact that you don't make a blessing. You don't make the blessing of Al Tilat Yadayim, but you do make the blessing of Al Nikiyut Yadayim, on the cleaning of my hands, a more generic blessing.
do you know anyone who does that?
So we're going to see now. Inside of Marachabra. Thank you for bringing this. And this is a proof for why you cannot use just pure logic when it comes to halakha. Because with logic you can make mistakes. You have to see what do the other poskim see when they look at this. What is their understanding of it? So let's see what the Rabbi David Yosef says here.
Well, We talked a few weeks ago about how there was a certain core logic to this type of study, but that certain groups historically found a kind of, I would say, almost like avoidance logic. This is different than, say, Al-Pi Kabbalah, which has a whole other reason for choosing. But there's also was we'll do this because we don't want to
decide between two.
Yeah.
Right.
Ruffle feathers.
Unfortunately, that's what's considered mainstream halakha today. What you just described is mainstream Orthodox halakha. It's it gets worse as time goes by, because as the opinions increase and they try to cater to all of them, people will be able to do less and less and less and less.
Well, it's like a bug in the code, in the software.
Absolutely, it's going to crash.
And then it's
going to crash. Sure. You know, when sort of halakhic ideas come up, and I try to discuss them with other Talmidei Chachamim before I make a decision. And sometimes I can't help but notice that they're not even willing to have the discussion of maybe it's like this opinion or that opinion. Rather, they'll say, listen, why get involved? Just say no. But that's not the proper way to study halachot. That's not the right way, but it seems to be the prevalent way. So when I, so to speak, get gutsy and say, let's decide like one opinion, oh, but you're going to be, it's modern, it's this, it's that, it's whatever they like to throw at you. But that's the way the world looks today. That's the attitude of the world today. People today don't know what's halakha. What is yes allowed? What is it that I have to decide between two opinions? Okay, we'll get there. So we said you should rely on the opinion of Maran and wash your hands with this water. Ulam, but you see we're on page 61 in the first paragraph over there. 61, ulam. Last three words in the line. Ulam. Lo yivarech al netilat yadayim klal. Says Rabbi David Yosef, you should not make an al netilat yadayim at all. Meaning, from this language, he seems to also understand that the opinion of Maran is also not to make al netilat yadayim. V'chen lo yivarech al nikiyut yadayim. You should not say al nikiyut yadayim, like some people wanted to suggest. Ela yitor b'rabachar, you should just wash without a blessing. Sheklal gadol biyadenu. We have a big rule in our hands. Shesafek brachot lakel sabal. That when we're in doubt about making a blessing, we don't make the blessing. So he says, regarding tilat yadayim, we definitely don't make the blessing. Regarding this new blessing of al nikiyut yadayim, there are people who would argue, and therefore we just better not say. We're better off not saying a blessing at all. Everyone agrees? Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense? Let's ask you a different question. Okay, so you didn't have the right water. You had dirty water, whatever you had in the morning. You finish praying, you drive back to town after your camping trip, and now you're in a 7-Eleven. I don't know, you have water. Should you wash your hands again?
You mean after praying?
Yeah, because the water that you had in the morning wasn't sufficient. It really worked only...
But you're washing before prayer. It's not the idea of washing as a ritual in itself. It's...
Right, but you still have to wash at the beginning of the day. Meaning you still didn't really fulfill that washing according to all opinions. So when you go back now and try to wash again?
Yes?
I
It was
don't
clean water right this time. Yeah.
No, no,
We
we need to unless you're going to eat.
Oh, the question is...
And we finished. So
You're
why do we
talking like
washing?
Jack now.
Yeah, that's what I said. But you say there's an inherent reason to wash.
Right. There are also two washings in the morning. One is for removing the impurity from your hands, and one is for preparation for prayer.
Yeah.
So let's say you did one of them, but we still...
Well, you already prayed, so you were allowed to pray, so there's no need to do that again, that aspect.
But maybe
of
you
it.
like to still have pure hands according to all opinions, which you don't. Some rabbis would say you were not allowed to pray. So why, for not for mincha, make sure your hands are completely clean according to everybody?
Okay.
But is it the right approach to satisfy all our opinions? If we decide to go by Maran, go by Maran. We'll never finish if we'll try to satisfy everybody.
Cleanliness and tefillah.
I did Netilat Yadayim, I did my tefillah.
But if you didn't see, you're asking something which was already a question, which is you already prayed with water that's not acceptable to say a bracha on.
According to
No.
according to the Zohar and the Mekubalim. According to Maran, you wouldn't make a bracha on it, but it was acceptable to pray with those hands. So what do you like to make the Mekubalim happy?
Tefillah.
So why Mikubalim are not happy right now?
You have to trace it.
And it's just a funny question. Like, why are they not happy right now?
Did they say that if water is not clean, it's not enough to
Yeah, look at the top of 61. We said it.
take out?
According to the Zohar HaKadosh, we said, these things are ma'akavim. They hold you back from fulfilling the mitzvah of washing your hands.
Oh.
Okay.
So is it worth it now to make the Mekubalim happy or not?
So, question.
Yes.
So, if we're not supposed to study the Zohar until we know all this other stuff, why would we want to please the Zohar?
And if we go by Zohar, we couldn't do prayer. It's tefillah. So either we follow Zohar or not. If yes, then we cannot do tefillah. If no, then we already did tefillah.
Well, we have to understand why the Zohar says you can't. It's deeper than just the water. Right?
But we are not at this deepness yet.
Everything has a source and a reason to it. It is not a thin air.
This question is going to come up over and over and over and over again. Before I went to Israel, I told you there's an argument about the words of Kabbalah. The Sfaradim of today are obsessed with it. Obsessed with Kabbalah. They try to follow the Kabbalah everywhere. Zohar, Ari HaKadosh. The Ben Ish Chai perhaps was the reason why this happened. He mainstreamed Kabbalah, not just as a philosophy or theology, but into practical observance for the masses, not just for Mekubalim. He felt it's the time of Mashiach, that's what needs to be done. The Ashkenazim, similar. They also have become recently into things according to Kabbalah, but on a much more reserved basis. Only where the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim, quotes the Zohar, do they feel that that's now for the masses to do. But in a situation where the Chavetz Chaim does not quote the Zohar, it's only for Mekubalim to do. Then you have a third opinion of Rav Masas. Rav Masas tells us, he's the chief rabbi of Morocco, later the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim. He quotes the Chidah and a number of other poskim that tell us Divrei Kabbalah, the words of Kabbalah, Lo Nemru, were only said Lematzniyehem bilvad. In Hebrew, would be Ela Lematzniyehem bilvad. They were only said to those who are actually Mekubalim, but not to your average person. Only a Mekubal is allowed to follow the words of the Kabbalah. A normal person should follow the normal path of Judaism, which is halakha. So Simcha's question, and your question, is going according to Rav Masas. But according to the mainstream Sfaradim, and according to many of the Ashkenazim, in a situation where you can easily appease the Mekubalim, why not? Rav Masas will tell you why not, because it's not for you to deal with. But not everyone agrees with that opinion. So when I was in Israel, I asked Rav Peretz. I asked Rav Peretz what to do when there's a machloket between halacha and Kabbalah. He said, give me an example. Rav Peretz never likes to give answers. So you have to push him. Then he'll give you an example. So next time you come to him, he'll say, oh, see, but I only spoke about that example, not this example. He's like that. So Rav Peretz is a rule like this. Halacha says you're allowed to eat on the morning of a fast day until whenever that time is, 5:28. So
Until the time the rabbi says.
Right?
But you're not supposed to eat before you pray.
Interesting, but the time for prayer only begins at that time. So really you're not supposed to eat between 5:28 and when you pray. Being until 5:28 it's still nighttime. You can still pray Ma'ariv and have dinner. You're not supposed to have a meal though about half an hour before a fast starts. So let's say 5 o'clock, okay? Say 5 o'clock? Fine. The Zohar says the fast doesn't start at 5:28. The Zohar says the fast starts as soon as you go to sleep for the night. Once you go to sleep for the night, the fast started.
But
I
if you
didn't
have
know
the
that I'm
intention,
Kabbalist.
but if you have the intention when you go to sleep, that you
For that
Oh.
one.
up.
So according to the Zohar, if you have the intention when you go to sleep that you're going to wake up, you're allowed to eat. Why? Because then you really didn't go to sleep for the night. You went to sleep on condition you're going to wake up. So according to the Zohar, only the second time you go to sleep would be sleeping.
Who eats at 5 a.m.?
So I asked Rav Peretz,
Really?
should we be careful like the Zohar,
Like
or can we be lenient like the Shulchan Aruch? And Rav Peretz smiled and said, that's a good example. He said, my custom on every fast day is I wake up before and I have breakfast.
Really?
Every fast day. He says, so? He said, Rabbi, does that mean you don't follow the Kabbalah? I said, no, that means I eat before my fast. I said, so are you allowed to not eat? He said, yeah, you're allowed to not eat if you want. Meaning he doesn't seem to be as opposed to following Kabbalistic traditions as Rav Masas is. But even he himself does not worry so much about violating them. So in this situation, if it's easy to refrain or if it's easy to wash your hands again, why not? Let's assume you should.
But is the Al-Pi Zohar or Al-Pi Kabbalah available for every single halacha that Jews follow? I mean, is it like a separate tradition, so to speak? So it's kind of like it comments on this, but not on that, in a way.
Well, Zohar doesn't always argue with halakha.
Right.
It's a rare occurrence where it argues. The logic, by the way, that when halakha and Zohar argue, you follow halakha and not the Zohar, is very simple. Tell me why. Why not follow the secrets of the world?
You said it's because I couldn't believe it's for them.
The law.
Reb, what's the logic, though?
It's going to be more difficult, more stringent than normative.
Okay, but let's say that about the Rambam, let's say. I mean, not specific about the Zohar. Who wrote the Zohar? Or most of it?
Rav Shimon Bar Yochai.
Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Not all the Zohars were Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, please. No, this is a fact. Some parts of the Zohar were written by other Amoraim in that Tanaim in that time period, the colleagues of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. And some parts of the Zohar it could be were. I shouldn't shake up these sort of words. Fine. So regarding the Zohar, assume the Zohar was written by Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. When we follow halakha and the Shulchan Aruch, I mean, if that goes according to the Rambam and the Gemara and the Mishnah, we're following who?
Carl.
Rabbis of Cairo, but we're really following.
Rambam and Mishnah.
We're following all the rabbis in the times of the Mishnah. So if Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and all of His Holiness were to argue with all the rabbis in the Mishnah, who would we follow?
The rabbis of the Mishnah.
The rabbis of the Mishnah. Why? It's not because Zohar is less important than halakha, but rather with a very simple occasion. Majority and minority, who do we follow? The majority. The Zohar is almost always a minority opinion when it argues with halakha. And therefore the logic behind saying that only Kabbalists should follow that opinion would be saying because you're a student of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So you have an obligation towards Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But everyone else is not a student. They don't follow Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in everything. So when it comes to this equation, majority and minority, they have to follow the majority. That's the logic behind it. That's why if someone who's not a Kabbalist were to do something according to Kabbalah that negates halakha, it would be a big problem for them. Because they're abandoning the way that we've always passed in halakha to join the students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai when they're not actually students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
That's a quite interesting opinion.
Does that make sense?
Yes, very big sense.
See, a lot of these rules, you know the rules. Halakha, Kabbalah, we follow halakha. But why? What's the logic behind it? And if that's true, then why can a Kabbalist follow Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Why can't I? That's the answer. When we look at the rules of halakha, we have to come out to them.
So
The bottom line.
Any Jew is able to follow halakha, but in terms of the Kabbalah, is there a standard that allows you to follow it, or can any Jew choose to follow it?
Chassidut is one application of that.
Because it is so far out of the mainstream kind of linear thought, you know.
Zev's going to get me in trouble now.
Pardon?
Zev is going to get me in trouble now.
I always
So
get
your question was a good question. That has a very good answer. Zev's question is not a question, it's a point, and it's a point that doesn't have a good answer. I'm going to answer your question. We'll get to Zev's problem. What determines a person being able to follow Kabbalah? Very simply, one who understands Kabbalah.
Yeah.
To understand Kabbalah, you have to, it's not that you have to be 40 and you have to know the whole entire Torah backwards and forwards. And not everyone who knows the Torah backwards and forwards is still able to actually understand Kabbalah.
But what do you mean by understanding? He's supposed to have a rabbi, right? Who he's connected to and
Receives Kabbalah from.
yeah. Not just
Not everyone who studies by a rabbi who teaches Kabbalah is able to pass it off to the student. Not every student is able to understand these things. You have a situation of a big Talmid Chacham who does not understand Zohar. It's not a flaw in the Talmid Chacham. He is not ready to be a Kabbalist, or it's not his purpose in this world. How much more so somebody who's not on that level, who's not a Talmid Chacham? If a person is not a Talmid Chacham, they definitely can't follow the Kabbalah. Simple. That's a good answer to a good question. Then Zev has a problem. He mentioned Chassidut. Somehow it's always going to come out like I'm hating on the Chassidim. I love Chassidim. I love Chassidim. Brought happiness. They brought all kinds of good things, unity, all kinds of beautiful things to the Jewish people. I'm not taking it away from them. They also brought a lot of problems to the way Judaism operates. See, the Ashkenazim had to put up with the Chassidim. And the Ashkenazim were not so successful in putting up with them. The Ashkenazim, instead of dealing with the problems, decided just to outlaw them. Because I'll tell you the truth, Chassidim are not as good as you think they are.
Are not as good as what?
As you think they are. I know this sounds heretical. My wife is Chassidic, I get it. Chassidim are a revolutionary movement of people who openly and brazenly fought against the mainstream Orthodox establishment of Europe. Period. It happens to be they were led by people who were just as holy and mainstream and Orthodox in their own right. Fine. But they were perceived by the mainstream establishment as a crazy group of people. And they weren't always wrong. Look at the fact that you have Hasidic Rebbes today who pray at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A person, I don't know, they made a mistake, they slept until 4, and they still want a bunch of... Fine. But to have the Rebbe who's teaching his Hasidim to do that, come on, that's really ridiculous. And if I were the Vilna Gaon, I'd probably do the same thing. The Sfaradim, you see the Sfaradim quoting Hasidic Rebbes in their books, probably only because they didn't know about the halachic unobservances of the Hasidic movement. They saw beautiful works by Hasidic Rebbes, but were not aware of their actions in Europe. It could be that if the Sephardic rabbis were aware of some of the things the Hasidim were doing, they would have joined in with the Vilna Gaon in their opposition to Chassidut. Because if you think the Lithuanians are diehard about systems and halachot, you've never met the Sfaradim before.
According to well, it's quoted to Baba Sali, it was by one of my teachers, that the Baba Sali said the Sephardim should follow the Derech Baal Shem Tov.
Okay, I don't know what to do with that.
I don't,
Because he didn't, so I don't know what to do with that. But the Baal Shem Tov didn't pray at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did he study in Litvish Yeshiva or somewhere? Or?
The Baal Shem Tov's whole history is very interesting. Historians hate the Baal Shem Tov. Because for a person who had such an influence on history, you almost can't prove anything about his life. You could barely track the Baal Shem Tov down on any written document and any... His whole life is like one big cloud.
Story.
Historians have a really hard time with the Baal Shem Tov.
It's like a Rebbe story.
Almost to the point where I read an essay by a historian that if it wasn't for all these people who claimed to be students of the Baal Shem Tov, he wouldn't actually believe the Baal Shem Tov ever existed. So where did he study? All kinds of things. Right? According to the Chassidim, he studied from an angel.
Like me.
No, so what do I say? Did he go to... the whole thing is, I'm not... fine. The Baal Shem Tov was a tzaddik yisod olam, was a righteous person beyond many other righteous people. But again, you can be a righteous person. You don't always have to be one that I have to follow. So why am I telling you all of this? The Hasidim did something very dangerous. They took Kabbalistic ideas and mainstreamed them. Meaning they taught people who were very simple Jews to do things that they should not be doing, at least not according to mainstream Judaism. According to Chassidut, that's the whole point. You take a simple person and make them holy. According to mainstream Jewish practice, there's an order to the world. You first study this, then you study that, then you do this, then you do that, then you end up somewhere. The Chassidim broke all those barriers. So what you have today are Chassidim telling you, oh, I do X, Y, and Z according to Kabbalah. Yeah, but the Rambam didn't do that. The Shulchan Aruch didn't do that. Yeah, but we're Chassidim, we do things different. That's a very dangerous thing to say. And that whole idea of mainstreaming Kabbalah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I have a very strong Kabbalistic persuasion that I never let show. Because it's mistaken. It's easy to get swept away in passion and fun and depth and spirituality. You have to have something around you. And if we're not bound by halachot, we'll end up in all kinds of crazy places. Nobody knows where we're going to end up. So the Hasidim as a movement, they succeeded. Look, they're religious, they follow halachot, they keep Torah. I can't say about them that they should have been stopped and wiped out, right? But it's still interesting. They've brought to our table a lot of complications, because before they came to the table, nobody did the things they did. And now they do. And now that's mainstream. Now that's even more religious than those of us who only follow Shulchan Aruch. So that's what Chassidut is all about. That's the problem. I don't have a good answer to the problem. Everyone's looking at me like I spoke too much.
No. No, just because I was just thinking about what the Chabad movement says, that the well springs of the Torah opened and spread Chassidut to the four corners of the world, and the Zohar. And that's one of the big bases of the movement.
It is no doubt that the Hasidic movement is a messianic movement at its core.
Oh, yes.
And its belief is the world will only be redeemed when its teachings spread to the whole world.
Right.
That's a basic tenet of Hasidut.
Right.
Some Hasidic groups are more, dead set on it than others. But that's part of their belief system. But between you and me, if you had a rabbi that you were as head over heels with, you'd probably do the same thing. Like the whole world has to know about him, or else Mashiach's not going to come. You want to say something?
2 comments.
Yes.
One, so I just came back from LA, where I do Mariv with this old Russian Chabad shul, right?
I know what that is, yeah.
And at the edge of the davening, there's these 2 little school kids they have up on the stage, and then their whole purpose.
Wait, am I pausing the recordings for this?
Okay.
Am I?
Pardon?
Am I pausing the recordings?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Off the record.